What's going on, good people? Welcome back. It is day 10 of the 31 days of value. I'm getting some messages from you guys. I just want to say thank you for hanging out with me. I just did this really because I know how hard it is to run a home service business, okay? And if I'm struggling, and by no means am I special, but if I'm struggling, I'm just going to assume that many of us are struggling because it's a never-ending fight. It's a constant battle, but perception matters. What are we striving toward creates hope. As long as we know what our gold star is, we have hope that it's all worth it. I implore you to adjust your thinking that making money is the goal, because there's never enough money and it'll only stress you out. So aim for impact. That's my very important message for today. So in terms of impact, I want to kind of help you reframe your thinking around what it is that you are striving toward. Quick story. I grew up with a father who owned a quote unquote painting business. And this painting business of his was incredibly reliant upon his two hands. Therefore, the business in and of itself had absolutely no value in the eyes of the market. So let's talk about what value really means in the eyes of the market. So when you look at value of anything, it's only determined by what someone else is willing to pay for it. So that's why Bitcoin is at $100 and something thousand per coin, because people are willing to pay that amount of money for it, which is insane. But it's still like that's the idea here, is that the value of something is only determined by what someone is willing to pay for it. And look at a house, for example. If the house has no flooring, drywall needs to be redone, plumbing needs to be ripped out, roof needs to be done, well, it's very difficult to find someone that's willing to buy it for a premium price. That's where you're going to have your flipper market, where they severely cut pricing on a home in order to make a profit. So again, there's a market for that, but the hope is that they're going to make a profit, okay? Or if you have a house that is brand new and all of the air conditioning's brand new, the plumbing's brand new, all the buttons work, the value of that is going to be extremely high, because in the eyes of the market, it's worth paying for. People can justify that, right? But let's talk about like what it is when someone wants to buy a business. And I think it's really important that you understand this concept, even if you never plan on selling your business. My concept, my principle is build it to sell it. Reap the rewards as if you were the investor of your business. Don't wait to sell it for someone else to reap the rewards of being an investor of your business, right? So let's look at it. First thing I want to address is watching my father struggle and him having absolutely nothing to show for all of that wonderful work he did many years ago, and all of those customers that he did work for that he's no longer servicing as a journeyman painter. For me, oh, that's terrible, right? Like, there's nothing to show for it. No one can buy that. There was no book of business. There was no assets. There was no team. There was no infrastructure that wasn't reliant upon him and his physical presence, okay? So let's talk about valuation of business. And again, luckily I have two different businesses, so I can use an example of drip jobs and the value of drip jobs in relation to the value of my painting business, okay? So let's talk about drip jobs for a second. Drip jobs, the product in it of itself is self-sustaining, right? At its core, it doesn't need maintenance and stuff, but at its core, it's self-sustaining. If someone is looking to buy drip jobs, they would say, okay, this product is what people are buying, okay? So that means that the quality of the product determines the value of the business more so than the people and the process around the product. People are coming to drip jobs for the product. Servicing the product is a byproduct of the actual offer, which is drip jobs, okay? So that's appealing to an investor. because it's not people dependent to service people. Okay. So that's why software companies have one of the biggest multipliers, because it's very turnkey. We transfer the code base, we transfer the customer success roadmap, and you just need to find a developer that can manage and ultimately, upkeep the code. Okay. Now, in terms of drip jobs, I am 100% removed from that company. For me personally, 100% removed. I don't do sales. I don't do customer service. All I do in that drip jobs is vision and helping implement the vision, which is valuable. But if we're just looking at a transaction here, if someone were to come buy drip jobs, they would just have their own vision for how they want to improve the software. They would take our entire customer base, they would take the revenue, and we'd negotiate which team members stay. And at that point in time, they would be able, all we would have to do is do paperwork, transfer bank accounts, and they now start receiving income. Okay. Very, very, very easy. And the income is predictable. We know how many customers pay us per month. We know how many are going to pay for the year, right? It's recurring revenue. So again, when you look at a business to an investor, they're saying, yes, yes, yes. Okay. Don't worry. I'm not selling drip jobs. I don't care how much they offer me. Okay. But I just want you to understand that side of, that industry. Okay. Well, let's look at home service. This one is very difficult. Okay. Let's think about home service for a second. It's very, very people dependent. Okay. And by the way, when we talk multipliers, the multiplier is, generally speaking, is based off of EBITDA, which is, I think it's like your income before tax, interest, and a couple other things. Google it, GPT it. Again, I am no expert in acquisitions. I just want to share the principles. For me, you would look at a multiplier on sometimes top line, which is your sales. So in this case, you might get sometimes a 10 to 15x multiplier on software, whereas in home service, it might be 1 to 2x if you're lucky. Most home service acquisitions are based off of the EBITDA. So in other words, that would be, your net, whatever you really net is, generally speaking, close to what the EBITDA number is. And then I've heard that it's like 3 to 4x. So let's say your EBITDA number, after EBITDA is, or before EBITDA, you get the idea, is let's say it's 200K. Well, the 3 to 4x multiplier is going to be, okay. So if you have a $2 million business, you might only get, 5 to 800K for that business, which might be good, might be good for you, and it might be fine. And that, like, the goal here though is for you to understand that. Okay. So there's a few components we need to make sure happen for you to even have that conversation. I'm sure my dad at this point in his life would love to get a $500,000 check for what he spent many years building. I'm sure life has happened to some of you to where at some point or another, like, you thought, man, I'd really love to start something new, or I'd really love to exit my painting business. The first thing you need to understand is what you did create has value. The idea is to create more value with what you create. And we need to look at it through the lens of an investor. When people invest in something, you got to understand that people want to make more money because of that investment. I've never invested in anything and thought, man, I can't wait to do more work. Like, no, it's like the goal of an investment is I want to take money, move it into this vehicle, which might be this painting business. And because I invested X amount of money, not only do I want to increase the value of the asset, not only do I want to make it better, get new trucks, pay more for marketing, pay more for branding, I want to be able to receive more money on the money that I spent. Okay, so if I put in 100K to this painting business, the value of the company is 100K. I know that if I add cabinet refinishing as an offer and I do all these other things, okay, add team members, add trucks, add management, okay, the value of the business in and of itself is going to go up to, let's say, 500K. Okay, let's say 500K. With that said, while I'm increasing the value of the company, I'm also making profits, right? So it's just like you would look at a house, right? So if the house is 100K, I might look at it and say, well, if I add the roof and I add painting and I add flooring, if someone were to buy this house after I'm done making it nicer, I just took my 100K capital and turned it into 500K. Okay. But the entire time that I own that house, I'm renting it out and I'm making cash flow month to month to month to month. Okay. And that example represents your profits as a business owner. So we should always be thinking of our business as a house that we want to be self-sustaining, self-sufficient. And we want us as the business owner to be completely removed from the day-to-day operations, okay? This is very important because you want to look at it through the lens of an investor. And most people that buy home service companies, like someone that buys your company, generally speaking, they're going to want to be an owner-operator unless you sell it to private equity, which could happen. But in the painting business, generally speaking, like the buyers are usually people that want to own and operate an already established painting business. They want to speed up the process of having to grow a business from scratch, okay? So generally speaking, like they want to kind of have some hands-on, but they don't want to be forced to. They don't want to be doing the sales. They don't want to be doing the project management. They want to oversee the operations. They want to do what I'm doing in my business right now, which is vision, which is high-level decisions, which is moving parts around, which is aiding the team, coaching the team, right? And there's another level to that where you're just completely removed and no one knows who you are and you hire a GM. I'm not at that stage yet. I'm not ready for that stage. I don't want to be at that stage right now. But you know what? All I would have to do is put a GM inside of Premium Painting and say, hey, here's what I do. I verify the proposals once they're built. I manage scheduling on a high level. I coach my team in this area, and I oversee hiring. I don't do the phone interviews. I don't do the in-person interviews. I oversee the decision-making behind the hires, okay? And then I handle payroll and some of the other things, okay? So like I've limited my tasks to this small little amount of things that I do that I could easily pass on to a GM to do, okay? Now, with that said, that makes my business more valuable than someone who says to the investor, well, my responsibilities are every day I wake up in the morning, I go to the gas station, I get coffee, and I have at least 4 to 6 stops throughout my day. 4 of those are for estimates, 2 of those are for jobs, and I do that 5 times a week. Most of the time I'm on the road, okay? So compare what I told you about my day-to-day to what your day-to-day is, and picture us sitting in chairs next to each other and we're looking at an investor. And the investor says, okay, well, to be honest, I want to go with Tanner's business because your business seems like it cannot function without your physical presence. And that is how I want to break it down to you, is that if you are physically present, like if your physical presence is required in order to exchange resources, okay, then your business, the value of it tanks in the eyes of an investor, because the investor has to trade their time when the essence of making an investment is they want to trade their money for more money, not their time for money, okay? Or else they'll just start their own business. So you should be thinking like this. And the idea behind this isn't that you're going to sell your business, because maybe only 5% of you listening to this will ever get to a point where your business could be acquired. But you're going to have a much better experience running and operating a business the quicker you shed the skin, stop being so freaking emotional about the role that you have in your business, okay? Stop thinking no one else can do it like you. Stop thinking that the business is going to fail if you're not on the job. Stop thinking the business is just going to just fall away if you're not doing every estimate, okay? Stop thinking you're not going to have anything to do if you're not estimating or painting, okay? Or whatever it is that you do. The mindset is that there needs to be a detachment from the owner of the business and the operations. Jeff Bezos has no business being in the fulfillment center of Amazon. He has no business on the customer service line. He has no business selling and doing whatever it is that the only responsibility that man has or had when he was a CEO is vision. and high level direction. And we need to get you to that point. The reason why is because you just never know what could come up in your life where you may need to sell this thing and you don't have anything prepared. You don't have your SOPs done. You don't have SOPs. Dude, if you don't have SOPs in your business right now with AI, you're just lazy. You have to be. You don't care. That has to be it. AI will write the whole dang thing for you. You just got to tell it what you want it to say. Make an SOP for everything in your business. Say, hey, I do this, 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 I do this. Save them all as a document. Put them in Google Drive. Takes freaking 20 minutes, but that's part one of selling a business is like, okay, well, how does this freaking thing operate? I need to know that. You should have that ready to go. You need the admin. You can't, look, this is elementary level. If you're running a business and you're doing more than 500K, I want you to listen to me. You need an office admin. You need someone answering the phone. You're a bad office admin. There's no way you're doing it efficiently. You're literally losing more money than it would cost to staff an admin. I call it lead insurance. Okay, so let's say all my admin does, which she does much more, but all she did was just make sure that when people call that they're taken care of. That's $15 an hour to make sure that I have a shot at making $5,000 on a job that someone who didn't get their phone call answered would go somewhere else to spend. Okay, so like mindset shift, man. You can't keep going this way. You have to sit down and figure it out. You got to get the admin. And I'll give you a little secret. Go on Indeed. First of all, stop worrying about hiring a VA for everything, okay? It's okay to pay someone locally or in the United States. I think it creates a better experience for U.S. customers. Go on Indeed. You can actually put out an ad to the USA. Like you don't have to just do your local area in Indeed. And that's what I did. She lives in Indiana. She's a contractor, so she's not an employee, and that's it. So easy. Bi-weekly pay. Here you go. Everything's accessible. She accesses Drip Jobs, Open Phone, and Slack. Done. Easiest decision ever. I will never run a business without an admin. And at 500K, you can afford it, and you're literally losing money by not having someone answer the phones for you. It's a game changer. Anyway, but that's a step toward creating a sellable asset. Don't make the mistake in thinking that you're not like making an asset better. Like that's what you're there to do. You have an asset, and you either have an asset that's costing you time and money or one that's making you money. There's no in between. That's how you need to look at it. You need to look at it through the lens of a real estate investor looking at a property. Some of you guys are so married to your little property, that like you just have this like attachment to it, and it's a freaking investment. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I know that it's emotional. I know that you came up with the name and you drew the logo, but it's an investment, dude. And you got to treat it like that, because there could be a time period where you need to sell this thing, or there could be a time period where life happens. There could be a time period, and you want to be ready for that. You want to have a sellable asset, and you don't want to be scrambling when that time comes. So the benefit of doing that is your hope. Your gold star standard is I want to get to a point where I don't do any estimates, I don't do any administrative work, and I don't have to manage projects. If I can just get there, everything else will fall into place. But most of you listening to this right now are driving to an estimate or driving to a job. Some of you guys are working out right now, which is good, but most of you guys are in the car. Okay, I know this because I've asked. And if one of those things are true, what I want you to understand is all you're doing right now is occupying the space of someone else that could be helping do this low value task in your business. It's just a different mindset. So with that said, the goal for this message today was to help align your thinking, give you a gold star standard, help you see through the lens of an investor. If I were to buy your business, how much work would I have to do? And do you have to come with me? Here's another thing, by the way. You might be using your cell phone in your business. That's a problem. If I were to buy your business, I got to take your cell phone with you. Sometimes the systems are prohibiting you from growth. Okay. Sometimes the systems are prohibiting you from scaling. So again, got to get a CRM, got to get a phone system. Okay. Got to get a communication system. I recommend OpenPhone, DripJobs, and Slack. That's a great tech stack. And guess what you do when you sell your business? You just change the credentials. So that's it. That's what I got for you guys today. I appreciate you listening to this. We'll see you tomorrow.